Section 14 of The Boy Apprenticed to an Enchanter. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Amber Holcomb. The Boy Apprenticed to an Enchanter by Pádraic, Colum. How Ian and Bird of Gold were pursued by Zabulon the Enchanter, and how they went to the cave of Chiron the Centaur. O King of the Western Island, our wanderings began on the day when the ferryman left us on the further side of the river. We went to the country where my father dwelt. We found the old man still gathering brambles and thorns for his livelihood, and out of the treasure that had been given me I gave him riches, and he had not to go thorn and bramble gathering any more. We had only been a little time in the hut that my father built, when a new color came upon the ring I had taken off the magic mirror. Its color had been sea green, but now a red line came across it. By that we knew that Zabulon the Enchanter had left the cave that was under the sea, and the red line began to grow over the sea green of the ring, and we knew by this sign that he had begun to follow on our traces. Then said Ian to me, I will go from this place and seek a hiding, and it may be that I shall baffle Zabulon who follows me. I said to Ian, I shall go with you where you go. Nay, said Ian, it is not on your account that Zabulon pursues us. He has no rage nor hatred against you, O Bird of Gold, and if I should go from this place by myself, you would not be troubled by him. Then I said to him, O Ian, I had no playmate nor companion until I met you in the king's gardens. Now I could not bear to see you go from me, and where you go, I shall go too. Afterward, I asked him if there were in the world any enchanters who were as powerful as Zabulon. He told me of Chiron the Centaur, and of Hermes Trismegistus, the wise Egyptian, and of Merlin, whose home is on the island that is west of your western island. I thought that only from one of these enchanters might we get aid against Zabulon. The red grew over the sea green of the ring, and we knew that the further the red grew, the nearer did Zabulon approach us. I wondered how we might get to one of the great enchanters. Hermes Trismegistus, being in Egypt, was far, and Merlin on the island beyond the western island was further still. I thought of Chiron the Centaur, and it seemed to me that him we might be able to find. Now my father had lived a long time in the world, and he had heard many things. And he had thought over the things he had heard in the years when he had gathered brambles and thorns in the wilderness. I went to my father for word of Chiron the Centaur. Chiron the Centaur dwells all alone in a cave that is in the side of a mountain. The mountain is covered all over with a deep and ancient forest, my father told me. And again he said, once I knew the direction in which that mountain is, and tomorrow I shall go into the wilderness, and as I walk about, it may be that the memory of it will come back to me. He came back from the wilderness in the evening, and he said, away toward where the morning star shines, there is a great waste. If one skirts this waste, one comes to a river, the waters of which are as cold as snow. The river flows down from the mountain, on the side of which is the cave of Chiron the Centaur. All this I heard in the days of my youth. Over more and more of the sea green of the ring the red had grown. By this sign we knew that Zabulon was coming close to us. I spoke to Ian, and I said that we both should make ready to go to the cave of Chiron the Centaur. Then, when the morning star shone very brightly, we took leave of my father, and we went towards where it shone. We came to the great waste, and we skirted it as we had been told. On we went, and we came to the river, the waters of which were cold as snow. We turned our faces towards the place from which the river flowed until we saw the mountain that was all covered with forest. Deep and ancient and silent was that upward growing forest. So frightened of its silence were we that we never let go of each other's hands. For days we went seeking the cave, and at last we heard cries. They might have been from birds, they might have been from the winds, that said, who comes to trouble the rest of Chiron the ancient Centaur? We went toward where the cries came from, and we saw the mouth of the cave. We mounted the track that led to it, and in fear we went within. And there was Chiron, the ancient centaur. His head and his breast, his shoulders and his arms were a man's, and his body and his feet and his tail were a horse's. His great beard was white, and his horse's body was shrunken, but his eyes were like pools in which there are living fires. The power of all the kings in the world was in his eyes. Chiron lay beside a fire in which fragrant woods burned. He turned his eyes upon it, and we heard cries as if the winds in the cave made them. Who comes to trouble the rest of Chiron, the ancient centaur? I went down on my knees and I prayed him. O Chiron, wisest of all who deal in enchantments, I said, there is one named Zabulon, an evil enchanter, who pursues us. We have come to beg you to tell us how we may escape him. Not to me should you have come, the voice of Chiron boomed out. What have I to do with men who are as far from wisdom as Zabulon? Only one who is like him may strive with him. Go to another. Go to another. To whom shall we go, O centaur? I prayed. Hermes Trismegistus in Egypt is nearer to Zabulon than I am. Go to him, and he may tell you how to baffle Zabulon. Tell him that you have seen the phoenix in the cave of Chiron the centaur. As he said this, there flew into the cave the great bird that is called the phoenix. I may not describe her to you, O king. She flew to the fire of fragrant-smelling woods, and she held herself above it. She fanned the flame with her wings, and the fire rose up and caught her breast. Then the bird sank down on the fire, and we saw her burn under the eyes of Chiron the centaur. The flame died out, and what we saw of the bird that burned and the wood that made the fire was a heap of ashes. Then out of that heap of ashes came a bird. It was smaller than the bird that burned, but more radiant. As the bird stayed with the ashes beneath her feet, she grew by some great thing that was within her, and then she rose over the ashes and fanned them with her wings. Again I looked upon the phoenix. Go to Hermes Trismegistus in Egypt, and tell him that you saw the long-lived phoenix burn herself in the cave of Chiron the centaur, and come again out of the burning. And when you tell this to Hermes in Egypt, he will tell you what you may do to make yourself free of Zabulon. The phoenix flew from the cave. Then Chiron turned his eyes upon us, and he spoke to us of the way we should go to find Hermes Trismegistus in Egypt. When he had told us all, we went backward out of his cave, and then turned and went through the depths of the silent forest, taking the way the centaur bade us take. End of section 14.